Previously on Justin Time-Lapse, we were trying to remove a pin from the back of a caliper so we could get the pads out, and it proved very difficult and took us about 2 hours. So this is a different technique that, well, takes about 5 to 7 minutes per pin. So that's a lot quicker. Now the first thing you'll notice is the caliper is on the bench. It's on the bench and it's in the vise. And that's the first major difference. Now the reason why that affects things is because it's not got the disc in it. And if you notice, the pins get really fouled by the disc, so you can't get the mole grips on. But here, once they're removed, once the caliper's removed from the car, the mole grips will go on really easily. And what that does is that opens us up to a different way of approaching this. We're still going to use some of the techniques I showed in the previous video. So we're going to use the back and forth, we're going to use the hammer, hitting things, we're going to use the we've already used the screwdriver to scrape off the excess, and we're also going to use heat as well. So it all comes into play, and it's all still the same set of techniques, but now because we can get a load of purchase onto that mole grip and then onto that pin, that means that we'll be able to really apply some force to it. So if you have a look at what's going on here, we're hitting away on the hammer and then we're leaning back and forth onto the pin just to try and get it to start to move. So now we're applying heat to the caliper carrier, to the caliper body itself. And it's worth mentioning that this caliper is going to be rebuilt with new pistons and new seals as well, because the amount of heat we're applying to this is not going to do the piston seals any good, and the last thing you want is a piston seal failing, halfway through a braking zone. So with a little bit of heat on both sides, a little bit of wiggling and some penetrating oil, we've actually managed to make this pin move quite freely. And now it's starting to slide out, which is great. That's what we want. Now this is the captive pin, so this isn't one that we can punch out. We've just got to get this moving on its own. The other one on the other side we can punch through with something, and here we are. So one of the first things I notice when I get the pin out is it's still got part of the clip in it, so we've just pushed that clip through the hole. I didn't even know the clip was in there until that point because it's so rusty. A quick squirt of WD will help us clean the surface rust off the bolt. Then we can just have a look at what we're looking at. Is this pin reusable? Answers on a postcard. And I'm going to say no. This pin's not reusable. Which probably means the pistons and seals aren't reusable. Yeah, look at that. Look at all the pitting on it. That was a shiny chrome plated pin. Not anymore. Does seem better days, doesn't it? Okay, on to the second pin. So this pin should be easier because we can drive it out from one side to the other. Now, I should have really looked at the pin at this point and checked whether or not there was a wire clip in there. I didn't. So there's actually a wire clip on this one as well. So as you can see, we're using the tip of the blue flame on the caliper. And percussion all around the caliper. WD. and then percussion at the same time. Just trying to move it forward and back. Grip slipped off there. I should really be using flat grips here, but I'm using a set which are curved. But it shows that you can use the wrong grips. So we've got some movement now. We're just cycling through percussion, penetrant and heat. There you go, it's really moving. So just to recap, the amount of heat we're using on this, you probably wouldn't want to trust the seals again. So that would be the caliper seals, which is what keeps the brake fluid from coming out around the piston. I would say if your pins are in this kind of condition, you should be really looking at a full caliper rebuild. So that would be new sliders, new pins, new yokes, new piston, and new piston seals and dust boots. Again, we're about 5 to 7 minutes for this side. Given that it took 2 hours to get it off on the car, I would say that in terms of your time, if you've got something that looks as stuck as this, taking it off the car is going to be significantly quicker as long as you've got access to a vise. And the reason I swapped to a screwdriver there was because as I was punching the pin in, it was getting stuck in, so I used the pin to punch it out. And once again, I've got some of the clip left in there, which is just, that's a bit of a worry, because that probably means your pads could kind of come out on their own. The only thing holding those clips in, the only thing holding the pads in really was the rust on the calipers. I looked up the MOT on this vehicle and the rear pads were last done 7 years ago or 8 years ago, and the fronts were done 10 years ago. And then if we have a quick look at the pads, you can see that the surface is breaking away on one of the pads and this piston is seized. So that's probably a good indication that that pad's overheated and cracked and broken down. Anyway, hopefully this has been helpful, and I'm just in time lapse.